Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We're going to continue on with our Legends of the Alliance playthrough. In the last video, you would have remembered that we went ahead and we finished off this part of the tutorial. Now we're going to move ahead into the second part of the tutorial. So I'm quickly just going to hit this save slot here. You can see there's 5 that you can have, which is really cool because in games like Mansions of Madness, you can only have 1, and I really hope that they expand it in that game shortly too. But in this one, you can have up to 5 save slots. That's really cool. All right, so here we go, right back into the action. You were training with Corporal Kish when he got called back to the base, leaving you to continue on your own. You had just destroyed the last remote when a signal came across all comlink channels. Alert, alert, Imperial forces have landed. Begin evacuation procedures immediately. In this mission, you will learn how to perform Imperial activations. So that's pretty cool. Alright, the primary reference documents for this tutorial is the Legends of the Alliance rulebook, which we know we've printed off and have handy, which can be accessed through the rules button in the menu. Words in bold text refer to specific entries. This is kind of very similar to what we saw in the first playthrough, or first part of this tutorial. So here are the tiles that I need to gather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some magic, and we're going to come right back, and this whole thing's going to be set right up for you, alright? And we're back, easy as that. Alright, so we're going to go right to the mission here. Upon receiving the alert signal, you head back toward the base. You arrive at the gate to the base's courtyard to find the gate closed and locked. So we've gone ahead and we've already placed these tiles as well as the door, as you can see right here. Everything's all done, ready to go. Just going to go ahead and hit continue. You call into the command center to request that the gate be open for you. This is Lieutenant Talkin, the woman's voice responds over the comlink. Hold tight a moment, we are busy initiating emergency procedures. You wait impatiently at the gate for it to be unlocked. Alright. Place Garkan on the indicated space. Garkan is going to land here. Let's see, 1, 2, and 3. Oh no, sorry, I can't count the my silly tile here. Now again, I always do this. I put that extra tile here, so I can't count that space. So on the app, it looks like it's 1, 2, 3 spaces away. So it's 1, 2 actual spaces here, and that's great. He's got his starting weapon, the Vibro Axe. So that's perfect. He's already set up. He's got that from last game. We'll go ahead and hit continue. Place Jan on the indicated space, Jin on the indicated space. Jin's player takes the hero sheet and starting weapon and is going to land right there. So we're going to take Jin, we're going to put her right there. And she's of course got her vintage blaster as well as the dice ready to roll for that. Of course I keep the Vibro Blade dice ready for him, and we'll get this defense dice or die out of here. Moving on. Round number 1. Okay, let's see what happens here. Oh, nice. It is just then that you notice movement out of the corner of your eye. You turn to look, and through the dense foliage, you catch sight of sunlight glinting off of white armor. Deploy 3 stormtroopers to the indicated spaces. Choose a color below for this group of stormtroopers. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and use gray. We're going to call them gray. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to put these stormtroopers up on the map. So let's do that. I've got them handy here, so there's no need to pause the video or go out. So let's put them on the map where they're supposed to be. We got one guy here. We've got another guy right here, and another guy over here. And I knocked the door. Okay. What's next? The deployment card. We need to go get the deployment cards. Let's go into the stack of cards we put off to the side, and look at that. The Stormtrooper is waiting for us right there. So for each group of Stormtroopers, you just have a deployment card. They're going to talk a little bit about how the deployment card comes into play for this particular game, because some of this stuff is important. So let's go back to the app and see what they say. Alright, before you can react, the troopers charge at you. Normally, rebels get to activate first during a round, but these stormtroopers interrupt the normal flow of the game to activate first. Probably for the likelihood of the tutorial and just teaching. Imperial figures activate in groups. When a group activates, each figure is going to take an activation one at a time until all the figures in the group have activated. So all 3 of these stormtroopers are going to activate. The number of figures in an Imperial group is indicated by the number of bars in the top left-hand corner of the group's deployment card. 3 in this case. When the Stormtrooper is done activating, it'll be your chance to fight back. When it's talking about 3 bars, it's talking about those 3 bars. So when it has a group of Stormtroopers, you will always bring out 3 Stormtroopers with this particular deployment card, which is why we have 3 right there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and hit continue. This is the Imperial activation window. This window shows you everything you need to know to activate the Stormtroopers you are activating now. And we'll talk a little bit about this window right now. So if you select the group's portrait, you can view details about the group. You can also access this window through the group's icon on the right side of the screen. So you can actually click on this picture right here or this picture way up in the top right to access some information about the group. and you can go ahead, and actually we can go right now and select the portrait as an example. So right now it's showing gray stormtroopers because I chose their color. It says ignore squad training ability on the group's cards. This is what's really important. There's going to be an ability here that's more useful for either skirmish or for the one versus many in the campaign play of Imperial Assault. It's telling you right now what things you need to ignore on the card. So you would not care at all about the squad training ability on this card. Focus on other things. Surge priority is a whole different ballgame, so we'll talk about that now. This window shows you any special rules for the group, including any abilities on the group's deployment card that are not used, as I mentioned. You should ignore the squad training ability. We mentioned that. When playing Legends of the Alliance, all abilities on Imperial groups that use the word may or choose are ignored because there is no Imperial player to choose when and if to use them. This is really important. So if you go through any of these, any kind of block of text ever while playing Legends of the Alliance and ever see the word may, which is right there, or choose, you automatically ignore that entire piece of text in terms of an ability because there is no Imperial player to choose when and if to use them. Select anywhere on the screen to close the group info window. So I'll click here. All right, so it says this is a bonus that this group gets during activation. In this case, each Stormtrooper adds one surge icon to its attack during its activation. Bonuses can change each time a group activates, so you should check the bonus each time you activate an Imperial group. So every Imperial, if we had 4 groups of Stormtroopers, which wouldn't likely happen, although it could, who knows, they may have different bonuses. It's always good to click on their portraits in order to reveal what they have in terms of a bonus. So we'll go ahead and hit continue. Imperial figures act according to the list of instructions. One at a time, each figure in the group will perform each of its activation instructions in order, starting from the top. If a figure can't perform an instruction, it skips to the next one. Alright, some activation instructions have 1 or 2 activation or action icons, and you can see the difference there. On screen, you can see there's one with a little bit of a star at the beginning, and then it goes to a point, and these other ones are just straight arrows. An Imperial figure cannot perform instructions with more than a combined total of 2 actions during its activation. So even if there's 3 here, you can only do 2 of them, but you're starting top to bottom. If an instruction would bring a figure's total to more than 2 action icons to be able to use, it will skip that instruction. Additionally, Imperial figures can only perform one instruction preceded by the star and arrow. So essentially you can only ever do one of those even if there's multiple of them. So that's really interesting to know. Normally you get to decide the activation order for figures in an Imperial group, but for the purpose of this tutorial, let's start with the highlighted Stormtroopers. It's going to start a little, just teach us a little bit of what's going on here. So we got a Stormtrooper over here. It's going to activate this guy right here. Let's go ahead and hit continue. The first instruction these Stormtroopers has is to move 3 to attack the closest rebel. So move 3 indicates that this Stormtrooper will spend up to 3 movement points to try to perform the rest of his instruction, in this case, an attack. When a figure is moving to perform attack, it tries to get as close as possible to his target. So these Stormtroopers don't like attacking from distance. They're going to literally try to run up to me. Really, at the end of the day, what the app's trying to do is trying to reduce the chance it's going to fail on its attack, because as we remember, when you make attacks, if you happen to roll range and you happen to not get the range you need, then the whole attack fails. So what the Stormtroopers essentially trying to do is run up right close to you, take a pot shot, and then basically book it back to their spot or book it back into hiding. That's kind of how the AI works. So when an Imperial figure moves, it will take the shortest path in terms of movement possible to reach its destination. You can ignore the speed value on the Imperial figure's deployment card when using the move keyword. So you can see right here that the move or the speed on this particular one is normally 4, but the app is actually telling you exactly how much movement to use, and it's 3. So you can see the Stormtroopers kind of starting to run along here, and it's showing you the shortest path. This Stormtrooper has only one valid place to end its movement, the highlighted space. This space is as close as a Stormtrooper can get to the closest rebel, Garkin, with its 3 movement points. So we're going to go ahead and indicate and move the Stormtrooper that way. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3. This puts him right adjacent to Garkin, which is the best possible spot for his attack. Even though this tutorial will tell you where to place and move figures at times, this is for demonstration purposes only. During a typical mission, the app does not track where any figures, Rebel or Imperial, are on the map. This is really important because it's going to be up to you to make those best case decisions for the Imperials. Now the Stormtrooper will perform an attack against this preferred target, the closest rebel, as indicated right here. It says move 3, which we're doing right now, to attack the closest rebel, indicated by the text inside of those little brackets. In this case, the closest rebel is Garkin. The or Garkan. I keep saying Garkin, but it could be Garkan. Who knows? I'm just going to go with one of them. The Stormtrooper card shows that this Stormtrooper rolls 1 blue and 1 green for its ranged attack. So Garkin's player rolls those dice along with his defense die, which is black. So this is where our defense actually comes into play. And you can see right here, he's got a black defense die. So we're going to grab that. And we know that these Stormtroopers, they roll a blue and a green. So let's get all that together. So when a Stormtrooper makes an attack, you're rolling all of these when it's going against Garkin. So we're going to roll for the attack right now. Oh my goodness, what an amazing, amazing defensive roll for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue on the app. So as with any range attack, check to see if the attack has sufficient accuracy to hit. Then the Stormtrooper will spend any surges it rolled, including the free surge it received from its bonus. So we'll take a quick look here and see if the range hits. It definitely does. It's got 3 and he only needed 1, so we've got a complete accurate shot. Then the Stormtrooper will spend any surges it rolled, including the free surge it received from its bonus. So it gets 2 extra surges because remember, it had a bonus surge right off the top, plus we actually got some extra surges, but remember, we can only use each ability that has a surge attached to it once. So even though he has 3 surges here, he can only actually activate 2 of them, or spend 2 of them, I should say, using the 2 right here on his card. He has no more other surges to use. He has surges to use, but he has no more abilities to actually use them. So this will gain him 2 accuracy, completely useless because he's already got way more than enough accuracy. He's already got 3 and he only needed 1. But this is going to help him. It's going to give him an extra hit. So this is going to increase his total hit from 1 to 2, which is good. So let's go ahead and talk. He's got 2 hits against me. For each surge the Stormtrooper rolled, consult the surge priority list by selecting the surge priority. Oh, sorry, this is a little different with the app. My apologies. So you ignore these 2. I shouldn't say you totally ignore them, but just don't look at these ones. These are mainly for the other game. You're looking at this. This will actually tell you how a surge priority works. But you're going to see here that essentially what it's doing is it's taking the surge abilities from his card and putting them in a prioritized list. So I was kind of right, but really what you need to do is make sure that you're going top to bottom. So what you do here is you make sure you hit this priority little surge button. It'll tell you how to activate them in order. So it's saying that we should be using the +2 accuracy first before we then use the extra hit. But regardless, we know that he has 2 surges to spend, so he's going to get both of those. The Stormtrooper will spend its surges on the topmost surge ability that would have an effect on the attack, and that has not already been used since the attack already has sufficient accuracy to hit. Stormtrooper will skip the +2 surge ability and use the next ability to add 1 damage. That's another really cool thing. So say, for instance, I only had 1 surge. Let's say, for instance, hypothetically, I didn't roll any surges on this. Remember, we gained 1 surge that was on this Stormtrooper all the time. If we only had that 1 surge, if we already got the accuracy we needed in the surge priority list, then we would skip that particular priority level and jump down, and he would spend it on the BAM. That's really important to note. It's not just like you need 2 surges to get down to that level. If you are already using or don't need that top surge, he will move to the next one to try to use or spend it, which is pretty cool. Alright, remember that each block icon rolled on the defense die cancels 1 damage, and each evade cancels a surge. Finish the attack by placing damage tokens on the target hero's sheet equal to the number of unblocked icons from the dice and surge ability. We know, based on what we looked at, that he gets 1 extra BAM. He already got a BAM on his, or hit, I should say, not BAM, but on his die here, so he's 2, but we have a block of 3, so Garkin takes absolutely no damage whatsoever, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to give Jan her white die because it's going to come into effect at some point. Garkin now has his black die, and then Stormtroopers will keep their blue and green. Alright, let's move along. The Stormtrooper has now performed 1 instruction with an action, so it can only perform 1 more. Because the Stormtrooper performed an attack action with that star and arrow, it cannot perform another attack instruction. So basically at this point it's moving or trying to get away. Let's see what this Stormtrooper will do next. We will go to the next instruction in the list. Move 2 to reposition 4. Let's take a look at the map and see what that means. Reposition 4 means the figure will attempt to move to a space which the nearest rebel figure is 4 spaces away. Now there's a counting spaces in the rules reference guide. Figures will always perform this action even if the figure cannot get 4 spaces away. The highlighted spaces are all 3 spaces away from Garkin. Which is the furthest the Stormtrooper can get from him. So right now this particular Stormtrooper, as noted by the app, can only potentially get into these 2 spots and these 2 spots based on his movement that he can do. So let's see. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. He's going to do his best, essentially. So the app's saying, note that while these 2 spaces are 3 spaces away from Garkin, they are only 2 spaces away from Jan. So this is really important because if you're going to go, okay, I'm going to move him here, even though you're moving away from Garkin, you're still very close to Jan. So let's talk about like kind of how that works and how to know whether that's a legal move or not. Note that while those 2 spaces are 3 away from Garkin, they're 2 spaces from Jan. This Stormtrooper wants to be as close to 4 spaces away from both Garkin and Jan as possible. So it will not move to either of these spaces. So it will not. So essentially he's not going to put himself in a... in other words, if you're going to be making a move for the Imperials, you're making the move that's really going to screw you over the most. And putting him here to be close to both those heroes doesn't make any logical sense. He would in fact try to kind of go backdoor and hide, essentially. These 2 spaces are 3 spaces away from Garkin and at least 4 spaces away from the other heroes. So these 2 spaces are equally valid for the Stormtrooper to reposition to. So which one will the Stormtrooper move to? This is a case where the Imperial rule applies, kind of like what I was just talking about. When there are 2 or more valid options for an Imperial figure, the players as a group should decide which option is least beneficial to the heroes and choose that option. This is known as the Imperial rule. However, there's no time for indecision in combat, so if multiple options are roughly equal in their disadvantages for the heroes, or if the players cannot agree, pick one at random. So you can see, in this case, the indicated space is slightly better for the Stormtrooper because it puts the Stormtrooper out of the line of sight of the heroes, so it will spend its 2 movement points to move to this space. Move the Stormtrooper to the highlighted space. Absolutely. So 100% he would move 1 and 2 because he wants to get behind cover and essentially have that ability to not be in line of sight of the enemies. That just makes logical sense. All right, so what we just did there, and it's showing you visually on the app where to move, and you see we completed the bottom one here. So it's very interesting how they break it up. They say move 2, so we have 2 points of movement to use, but reposition 4, meaning get 4 away from the target of attack, or the last hero that you were essentially focused on, which was Garkin. And again, trying to not be near any other heroes as well. The Stormtrooper has performed instructions with 2 actions, and its remaining instructions all have an action icon, so it cannot perform any more instructions. It is now finished, so now the other 2 will activate. Alright, so we got the other one. So let's activate this Stormtrooper next. Like the previous Stormtrooper, its first instruction is to move 3 to attack the closest rebel. So we're going to hit continue. The Stormtrooper wants to get as close as possible to his target, so it will move to this space, move the Stormtrooper to the indicated space. So it's going to do a similar movement like 1, 2, and finally 3 to get extremely close to Garkin to take another shot at him. So there he is moving along in the app. And he's landed. Okay, so now the Stormtrooper will attack the closest rebel, perform the attack as before, and perform attack against Garkin, and then select continue. Okay, so let's do it. So he's going to use a black die. The Stormtroopers are shooting. We're hoping for some good defense here. Oh no, so here we go. This is where things can get a little interesting. So you can see there's a lot of hits happening here. So we got 1, 2, 3 hits. The range is perfect, way over the top. 7 range is insane. But 3 hits. We're going to use 1 surge. Using the surge priority list, we don't need any accuracy, so we're going to go down to the extra hit. Thank you to the extra surge we got up there. So we get an extra hit, giving us a total of 4 hits. Garkin's able to block 2, so 2 damage is going to come through to him. So we're going to go ahead and grab 2 of his damage tokens, and we'll just put them on his stack of cards for now, just to say he's been hit. Now, another thing to make mention of, guys, at this point, I am not taking into account any abilities on either of the 2 cards. So this is just for instructional purposes. We're going to start using those abilities in a future video, but for now, pretend they don't exist. If you're familiar with them, I do apologize, but we're just going to focus on learning the combat here. All right, so we've now gone ahead and completed the attack. So now the Stormtrooper has completed that instruction. It's time for its next, which is move 2 and reposition 4, which is very similar to the last one. So let's take a look. The Stormtrooper will use its 2 movements to try to get to that space that is 4 spaces from the nearest rebel. It cannot do that, but it can get to the highlighted spaces, which are 3 away. Choose the space that it seems the least advantageous for the heroes, or pick one at random and move the Stormtrooper to that space. Okay, so if I'm moving 2, I'm going to probably say that he's going to try to go further away this way. I don't think he would go that way into the open. He'd want to be kind of trying to get out of line of sight as best as possible. We'll just go with that. Finally, it's time for the last Stormtrooper to activate. You now have the knowledge you need to activate the last Stormtrooper in this group. Activate the last Stormtrooper, then select Finish. If you need to see something on the map, the View Map button below will minimize the Imperial activation window. Select the activation button that appears to reopen the activation window. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to be doing this next Stormtrooper. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just come over here and we're going to talk about activating this last Stormtrooper right now. All right, time to activate this Stormtrooper. So we're going to activate this guy right here, and his very first ability here to use is move 3 and attack the closest rebel. So we have to determine what the closest rebel is for this guy. Now, another thing to note is that you can't shoot, or I shouldn't say you can't shoot, but you can't move between 2 of these red bordered areas. So I couldn't slip between these 2 bordered areas and move out like this. That is not legal movement. So I'm going to have to go around essentially to make this attack. So the best option for him, I could go 1, 2, and 3, which will put him here, and I could take shots on this side, or I could go 1, 2, and 3, or maybe 1, 2, 3. So either way, I can get to these guys regardless. In terms of what's the better option, I don't know. They're very even. Either way, I can target whoever I really want to. It's going to be targeting the closest rebel, so regardless, Garkin's going to be the one who gets attacked. So let's go off this way. Let's go this way. Let's go 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. Now remember, when you're making an attack, and this guy's kind of on an angle here, of course Garkin doesn't know he's being attacked, so maybe he's like this. But essentially this Stormtrooper is making an attack across here. I have this line laser, which I think is really cool and helps to determine what's a legal attack and what's not. But essentially, you can attack from any corner as long as you can hit 2 corners without an intersecting line. So if I choose this corner right here, for instance, on my guy, I can pick off that back corner. Actually, well, I could do is I could go like, it would be more like this. So I could go along this line right here, and then I could also go over here, and those 2 lines don't intersect, which means that I would essentially thematically be kind of like popping around the corner and taking a shot at him. So it's good because I'm in cover. So I'm going to do that. We're going to make that attack now. So again, Garkin's being attacked, so he's got his black die. Stormtrooper's attacking. So let's take all 3 of these, roll them together, and see what we get. Nice. We got a really good block, but a lot of attack. So range-wise, we needed 1, 2 to get to Garkin in terms of counting the spaces. So we got 6. We're safe there. We remember that the Stormtroopers also get a free surge, and that surge is not going to be used on accuracy, as the priority list doesn't. We don't need it because we got way more than enough accuracy in the dice, so it's going to become an extra hit, so it's a +1, which means 4 is going to turn into 5, but thanks to the massive roll by Garkin to block 3, only 2 of them are going to get through. So still a decent hit by the Stormtrooper, but not a ton, but Garkin's still been hit. Now, just so you guys are aware here, we've got his health up top, so you can see. The other thing I noticed in the app here later on, I think at some point here it's going to mention that our health when you're playing 2 players actually increased by 10. So what happens is there's these little circle areas right here that say +10, +10. That means that the hero has +10 on top of whatever's on their character sheet, because apparently when you're playing with just 2 characters versus 4, of course your chances of survival are thinning. You need to have a little boost in health. So even though this says 14 health, the +10s on the app here actually give him a total of 24, and I think in the app we'll talk about that later on. So now we've completed this attack, so let's go ahead and I guess we'll go ahead and move 2 to reposition 4 essentially. So we got to move 2 at this point, figure out what's the best movement for him. It's obviously going to be going 1, 2, so we should land in the back corner over here. So let's go ahead and finish him off. He's now done his turn. So did the 3rd Stormtrooper end its activation in one of the highlighted spaces? If so, you got everything right, especially if it ended up behind the blocking terrain. Now it's time to fight back. Awesome. So we did exactly what we were supposed to do. So we moved him behind the blocking terrain. We did the exact position that was based on the Imperial rule, the toughest move for our heroes in terms of being able to get line of sight on him, because you can see some of these other options would have kept him out in the open, right? So if you get him in the blocking terrain to those 2 spaces, depending on whether you went right or went left. If I went left, I didn't land here. If I went right, I should have landed here. Those are the best 2 spots. All right. Notice that the Stormtrooper portrait on the right side of the screen is tinted red. Yes, it is. This indicates that the Stormtrooper group has activated. Perfect. Choose a hero to go first and have that hero perform an activation. When the activation is complete, select the hero's portrait on the left side of the screen to end the hero's activation. So just like normal, we learned this before. Now your objective is to defeat the Stormtrooper group. Remember, you can find your current objective in the message log. When attacking an Imperial figure, remember to roll its defensive dice. Place any damage tokens by the figure next to his figure on the board. When a figure has taken damage equal to or exceeding its health, as printed on the deployment card, the figure is defeated and removed from the map. Objective updated 1 of 4, defeat the Stormtrooper group. So what we're going to do is we're going to end it right here. We're going to come back in the next video and we're going to do some Stormtrooper killing. We're going to have our 2 heroes, Garkin and Jan, or Jin I should say. I want to call her Jan so much, but it's Jen and Garkin. When they activate, they're going to go ape, hopefully, on these 2 or these 3 Stormtroopers, and I hope we don't take too much damage doing it, but it should be fun. This will be the first actual combat, kind of full-out combat we've seen in this particular playthrough, so it should be interesting to see how it pans out. So hopefully you'll join me, hopefully you're enjoying the playthrough, and thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.